Hi, everybody. I'm Sara McDonald. I'm the Vice President of Conservation for the South Carolina Aquarium. I'd like to thank our partners, South Carolina Sea Grant and Tom Bierce, owner of Charleston Oyster Farm, for working on this project. Next slide, please. And I do have some animation. I apologize to my so I'm starting a little bit differently than everybody else. We're going to go 50,000 feet on the need for aquaculture literacy. So a lot of you, and I'm also a nerd, so I have figures and graphs and tables and all of those things. So this first, hopefully this looks familiar to some of you. This is from the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. And this is a graph of the world fisheries and aquaculture production. We've got time on the x-axis and volume on the y-axis. And what you can, blue, it shows wild capture fisheries production, and the pink and red shows aquaculture. And basically the take-home message of this is that you can see that wild capture food production has really, it increased for a while, but it has leveled off and is pretty much going, it's about the same. We know that we have limited resources when it comes to wild capture fisheries, but that aquaculture production is continuing to increase. Back when they did this report in 2022, they thought that by 2030, the ratio, it was more wild capture fisheries and less aquaculture. And they thought that that tipping point was going to happen in 2030. And it's already actually occurred. So now 50% of the world's seafood production is produced through aquaculture and 49% through wild capture production. And we know that that's going to continue to the wild capture is going to just stay the same while aquaculture, it continues to increase. So hit one more. So now let's go a little bit more narrow to the national seafood production for aquaculture. And as you can see, what's interesting is that the Atlantic is lumped together. The Northeast and the Southeast are lumped together. You've got substantial amount in the Gulf of Mexico, the Pacific, and the Atlantic all together. But then if you hit it again, and then one more, you can see that the Southeast is really small compared to the rest of the country and really nascent aquaculture production industry. And in fact, Charleston Oyster Farm, our partner in this, he was the first oyster farmer in the state of South Carolina to get a license. And that was just 11 years ago. So this is a really nascent growing industry in the Southeast and especially in the state of South Carolina. Next slide, please. So our activities, we did a few. The first was we started with some classroom learning about oyster farming. We started with just general information about aquaculture and fish farming, as well as shellfish farming. And then we did this 3 times. One in fall of 2024, and then we did it again in March and in May of this year. This is our first group, and this is our teen conservation crew. This is a group of teens that receive a stipend to do conservation work in the community. And in fact, I forgot to mention that our conservation program is community-based conservation. So we actually work beyond the walls of the aquarium. So we did this with the teen conservation crew, and then we did it with a marginalized community, a partner organization called We Are Family. They are an LGBTQ plus organization. And then the third one that we did was with the Culinary Institute of Charleston. So if you hit it once. So this classroom, which was about 45-minute classroom discussion and learning, was followed by a tour of Charleston Oyster Farm. And we did it with a local eco tour company. So it takes a while. As the crow flies, it's actually really, the oyster farm is very close to where the boat launch is, but you can't get there from here. So it was a great opportunity to learn for all of the participants to learn about salt marsh ecosystems and to see all kinds of great marine life and wildlife on the way to the oyster farm. And they learned both about wild oysters and the farmed oyster production. So if you hit it again, we also had a great adult learning session, and this was all thanks to the grant that we received from NAAE eeBLUE. Um, we had close to 140 people come out to a local brewery. We have a series, an adult learning series at the aquarium called Talks on Tap. We had a panel discussion that included not only our oyster farmer, but and as well as our Sea Grant aquaculture specialist, but we also had a local chef participate, as well as a member of this, an employee of the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources Oyster Recycling and Enhancement Program, or SCORE. I just know by SCORE, also partners with us. They do oyster shell recycling and oyster reef builds. And then we also had someone from our Good Catch program represented, and people were highly engaged. Everybody received an oyster shucker, and then they got to go eat oysters on the half shell, as well as we had some other refreshments for everybody. It was very well received. And we were able to, thanks to this grant, to offer this at a very inexpensive rate of $5 for aquarium members and $10 for non-members. And this was probably one, for me, it was the most well-attended Talks on Tap that an adult learning that I have participated in my tenure at the aquarium. Next slide, please. So for our impact, if you hit it, this is a quote from one of the parents of one of the families in the We Are Family tour that was in March of this year. But I'll let you all read that for yourselves. But in addition, for our team conservation crew, we after the oyster lecture, the head of our team conservation crew in our education team divided the students into two groups. And one group was Team Farm and the other group was Team Wild. And each of those teams, they had to actually sketch out the life history and life cycle of the oyster from farmed and from wild. And so it really showed that these teens actually absorbed and understood what the lecture was, because then they had to teach it to each other, which was super exciting as well. And next slide, please. So what is on tap? Well, we loved that Talks on Tap. It was super successful. We don't often do panel discussions for our Talks on Tap. They often are just, we bring in an expert from either from a nearby community or within the community, or from somewhere else in the state. But we think that the panel discussion was really well received. We got great positive feedback on that. So I think that's something that we'd like to continue in the future. We have a great relationship with Charleston Oyster Farm and South Carolina Sea Grant. It was unfortunate that South Carolina Sea Grant, their oyster aquaculture specialist, they had a change in staff. And so the person who we originally partnered with, she left in fall of last year. And Josh, the new employee, didn't come on until literally the week of our Talks on Tap. So it was his first week of work, and he participated as a panelist, and he rocked it. He did such a great job. And I was so impressed that, you know, we just threw him, we threw him right out into the community, and he did an awesome job. And now that he's been around for a little while, we've had great opportunities to partner with him, and he serves on our Good Catch Advisory Board, which is awesome. And the next thing is these oyster farm tours, which are also quite expensive. Yes, Josh, yeah, you're on here. Excellent. I'm so glad. Anyway, these oyster farm tours are quite expensive, and so the money that we received from this grant really connected groups that would not normally have been able to afford this kind of access to the oyster farm. We already, the third group was the Culinary Institute of Charleston, and their chef professors have already said that they want to do this again with us. So we're trying to figure out how we can help subsidize these trips so that we can, they love to have their chef students learn where their food comes from. That is actually one of their courses that they take. And so giving them access to an oyster farm was invaluable for them. So we want to do that again. We do member events for our aquarium members, and it's everything from seining to Gayutaku. And we're going to be talking to our membership events team to see if this would be something that aquarium members would be interested in doing as a paid event for our aquarium members. So we're looking forward to doing this more, and this is only the beginning. So I think that is it for my last slide. Just want to thank you. This is my contact info, and happy to answer any questions if anybody's interested.
Oh, we have something from Nina. She says, thank you for the talk. I want to echo two things you said. We too have really high interest and participation in adult programming, especially when eating oysters is involved. And we are also trying to lower the barriers and get more people out to the oyster farms. The tours are prohibitively expensive here, but is such a valuable learning lesson. I'm glad you got people out there.
Thank you, Nina. I agree. The tours are expensive here as well. And so that's why this grant was so valuable and important to us. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but for our team conservation crew, the majority of those students are from Title I schools. So giving them access was critically important. But all of the groups, none of these groups would have been able to afford that. We also, this grant helped pay for the bus transportation, because the oyster farms are not, we're in downtown Charleston and the oyster farms clearly are not nearby. And so to actually help transport people to and from the oyster farm, as well as to on the tour, was hugely important. So really helpful. Carrie.
Hi, great work. And a question, I'm a helper on a pretty large grant in Maine, led by University of Maine Cooperative Extension 4-H professionals and others, looking at building, and we're building virtual reality experiences on aquaculture farms for students, because it's wonderful. I mean, nothing beats the real thing and having them there in person to see and feel and touch and experience, but it's not always logistically feasible or affordable. So I'm going to turn this into a question. Have you thought about sort of that virtual component to broaden the access to other audiences that just simply can't afford or don't have the means to actually get out onto these farms?
I love that. We actually are, so I'm at the vice president of our conservation department, but our education department does have virtual programming. And we have, they just recently did a whole virtual lesson on climate change and sea level rise. And I think this could be great for them. I will definitely talk to them about that. If they haven't done it already, they might have. So I apologize if they have and I've missed it, but I think that's a great idea. And, we would be happy to go out to Charleston Oyster Farm and collect, video if that's what's necessary to help with. I have no idea what's involved in creating virtual learning, but yeah, I'll talk to our education team about that.
Yeah, and it could be, some of it is a platform. Anyways, I don't want to go long, but there's sort of choose your own adventure. It's through ThingLink, and you can pop up videos, you can do activities, you can Zoom. So it's 360 cameras, but then I know some other workarounds are actually streaming live from farms. Maine Aquaculture Innovation Center has done that a lot for educators, actually Zooming and beaming into classrooms and having live Q&A. I mean, I think there's many ways to approach it. And then the third thing I'll mention is the Canadian Maritimes. Their industry has been doing this for a while now, as far as trying to engage inland Canadians in their maritime culture, heritage fisheries. And that might be a great model to explore too. Just thought I'd mention it.
Great, thank you so much. And as I mentioned, aquaculture and shellfish farming is really new here. So I definitely think we can take some lessons learned from places that have been doing this for a lot longer than we have. So thank you so much.